Hello, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we dive into one of the most talked about political moments of the week. Karoline Leavitt takes on Senator J.D. Vance in a fiery debate that shocked the entire room. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Let's get into it. The debate began with routine political introductions, but tensions quickly escalated when Leavitt directly challenged Vance on his recent voting record. Her tone was sharp but controlled, and her first point caught Vance completely off guard. It was a powerful moment that set the tone for what would become a tense and emotional showdown between two very different Republican voices. Karoline Leavitt didn't waste any time. She immediately brought up J.D. Vance's inconsistency on national defense funding. With detailed examples and direct quotes, she exposed the gap between his campaign promises and his recent Senate actions. The crowd murmured in surprise as she delivered her critique with clarity and confidence, putting Vance visibly on the defensive. J.D. Vance attempted to respond with a prepared statement, but Leavitt quickly cut through the rhetoric. Her rebuttal was both factual and passionate, calling out what she described as political double talk. This moment struck a chord with many in the audience, especially younger voters looking for leaders who speak plainly and act consistently. As the debate progressed, the moderator struggled to maintain order. The intensity between the two candidates grew with each exchange. Leavitt's strategy was clear: challenge hypocrisy, stay grounded in facts, and connect with the audience emotionally. Every line she delivered was calculated for impact, and it showed in the crowd's growing reactions. One of the most viral moments of the debate came when Leavitt pulled out a printed quote from J.D. Vance's campaign in 2022. She read it aloud, then immediately followed it with a clip of him contradicting the same statement in a 2024 Senate hearing. The crowd gasped. Vance attempted to respond, but the damage was already done. Leavitt's preparation was undeniable. She backed up every accusation with timestamps, dates, and sources. Her approach blended fact-checking with emotional delivery, creating a narrative that was both believable and devastating for Vance's credibility. This wasn't just political theater, it was a tactical strike, and it landed hard. By this point, social media was lighting up. Clips of the debate were already circulating with captions like "Leavitt ends Vance's career" and "J.D. Vance caught lying." The debate wasn't even over, but it was clear who was controlling the narrative, and it wasn't the sitting senator. Leavitt had captured the moment completely. Despite the pressure, J.D. Vance remained composed, but his answers started to sound increasingly vague. Viewers at home could sense the shift. Leavitt had forced him into a corner, and he was scrambling to protect his record. Meanwhile, Leavitt leaned into her momentum, pressing further on immigration, healthcare, and economic policies. What made Leavitt's performance stand out was not just her facts but her delivery. She spoke with conviction, clarity, and control. Unlike many political figures who dodge questions, she faced every issue head-on. Her tone wasn't angry, it was firm. She didn't just speak to win the argument. She spoke to inspire trust. Karoline Leavitt's command of the facts wasn't just impressive, it was surgical. Every statement she made was backed with context and clarity. When she spoke about veterans' health care, she didn't generalize. She gave specific cases and referenced recent reports. This attention to detail made it difficult for J.D. Vance to counter her points without appearing uninformed or evasive. When the topic shifted to border security, Leavitt again took the offensive. She outlined a clear policy vision and contrasted it with Vance's past statements, some of which contradicted his current position. By staying focused and grounded in facts, she created a sense of authority that resonated with the crowd. People in the audience could be seen nodding in agreement with her remarks. At this point in the debate, J.D. Vance tried to pivot the conversation toward unity within the party, but the momentum was against him. Leavitt seized the opportunity to emphasize that accountability is not division, and that real leadership requires consistency. Her words struck a chord, especially among independent viewers looking for authenticity over polished political speeches. One of the most powerful moments came when Leavitt referenced her own upbringing and how it shaped her political values. She spoke about growing up in a working-class family, the challenges they faced, and why she believes in conservative principles rooted in responsibility and opportunity. Her personal story added emotional weight and humanized her position in a way Vance couldn't match. As the moderator posed a complex question about the national debt, Leavitt again demonstrated her preparation. She didn't just recite figures, she explained how those numbers affect everyday Americans. Her breakdown of government spending and inflation was simple enough for the average viewer to understand, yet insightful enough to show deep understanding of the issue. It was a masterclass in political communication. J.D. Vance attempted to challenge her by bringing up her lack of experience in the Senate, but the move backfired. Leavitt responded calmly, stating that principles and preparation matter more than years in office. She pointed out that some of the worst decisions in Washington have come from long-serving politicians. Her comeback was met with loud applause and clear approval from the audience. As questions from the audience were introduced, Leavitt continued to shine. Her answers were thoughtful and responsive. Whether asked about energy policy, education, or criminal justice, she remained composed and confident. Viewers could see that she wasn't relying on talking points, she was engaging from the heart, which made her answers feel authentic and grounded in real experience. One audience member asked both candidates how they planned to reach across the aisle and unite a divided America. While Vance gave a standard political answer, Leavitt took a different route. She emphasized the importance of listening first, then finding solutions based on shared values. Her response felt genuine and mature, and it earned her another wave of applause from the audience. Throughout the debate, Leavitt's body language was confident but never arrogant. She maintained eye contact, used open gestures, and smiled when appropriate. This gave her a strong stage presence and helped reinforce her words. Vance, by contrast, appeared increasingly tense. His shifting posture and defensive tone hinted at the pressure he felt during the discussion. By the halfway point of the debate, it was clear that Leavitt had the upper hand, not just in facts, but in tone, poise, and public perception. Social media was flooded with praise for her composure and courage. Political commentators began weighing in, noting that this performance could mark a pivotal moment in her political career. The impact was already being felt. Karoline Leavitt showed that you don't need decades in Washington to speak truth to power. When J.D. Vance attempted to brush off her critique as naive, she fired back with a concise timeline of his own contradictions. This wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a generational battle over what it means to lead with principle. And Leavitt stood firm. The next segment focused on education policy. Leavitt took the moment to speak passionately about parental rights and curriculum transparency. She argued that schools must empower families, not sideline them. Her stance was met with thunderous applause. J.D. Vance gave a more generic answer, but the energy in the room had clearly shifted toward Leavitt's message of empowerment and accountability. Vance tried to redirect attention by questioning Leavitt's donor history, implying she was backed by extreme interest groups. But Leavitt immediately dismissed the attack by providing a public breakdown of her funding sources and called on Vance to do the same. Her transparency disarmed the accusation and flipped the conversation in her favor, showcasing her willingness to be held accountable. As the debate entered its third quarter, Leavitt began to draw even more distinctions between her platform and Vance's. She spoke about the importance of a strong but limited federal government, ensuring liberty without overreach. Her words connected with many constitutional conservatives who feel modern politicians have drifted from core American principles. It was a moment of ideological clarity. When asked about small business policy, Leavitt referenced real conversations she's had with local business owners. She highlighted their concerns about regulation and inflation and shared how conservative economic values can offer real solutions. By using relatable stories and clear policy points, she connected emotionally and intellectually. Vance's broader economic theory couldn't match the directness of her approach. Throughout the debate, Leavitt repeatedly called for restoring trust in public institutions, starting with honesty and leadership. She accused Vance of shifting his values depending on political convenience. Her remarks were firm but respectful, and her central message was clear: the American people deserve leaders who say what they mean and mean what they say. The crowd agreed. One particularly emotional moment came when Leavitt described meeting a Gold Star family. She spoke of their sacrifice with reverence and used the moment to demand more support for veterans and their families. The room fell silent. Her voice cracked slightly with emotion, but she pressed on with grace. It was a moment that transcended politics and touched everyone watching. As the closing stages of the debate approached, Vance attempted one final push, accusing Leavitt of being too idealistic. She responded with one of her strongest lines of the night: "It's not idealism to expect the truth. It's leadership." That sentence alone captured the heart of her performance: direct, values-driven, and fearless. The crowd erupted in cheers once again. Commentators watching the debate live began tweeting immediately. Influential journalists and political influencers praised Leavitt for her poise under pressure. Hashtags like Leavitt won and Truth Over Politics began trending. This wasn't just a good night for Karoline Leavitt, it was a breakout moment. Even her critics were forced to admit she had dominated the debate stage. After the debate, both candidates stayed to shake hands with audience members. Leavitt was surrounded by supporters, many of whom were visibly moved by her words. Her team's social media instantly began posting clips and key quotes from the night. The digital momentum was undeniable, and for many, this wasn't just a win on stage, but a cultural shift in the making. Karoline Leavitt's rise in conservative media didn't happen overnight, and this debate was proof of how prepared she's become for national attention. She didn't just survive the spotlight, she owned it. Her responses were not reactive, but proactive. Every statement built on the last. She guided the conversation instead of being pulled into traps, which is rare for someone so early in their political journey. Behind every great debate performance is preparation, and Leavitt clearly did her homework. Analysts noted how she anticipated Vance's talking points before he made them. She used this foresight to stay ahead, cutting off weak arguments before they gained traction. This made her performance feel natural, not scripted. Voters respond well to authenticity, and Leavitt gave them that in every answer. During the healthcare segment, Leavitt was asked how she would reform insurance without increasing the federal deficit. Her answer was detailed and specific. She advocated for increased competition in the market, price transparency, and deregulation to lower costs. This policy-heavy moment proved that she's not just a talking head, she's capable of crafting real, workable solutions to America's biggest problems. The moderator then brought up abortion, always a polarizing issue. Leavitt approached the topic with firm beliefs but also emphasized empathy and compassion. She shared her pro-life stance respectfully and invited debate without attacking opposing views. Her tone was thoughtful, and even those who disagreed had to respect the way she handled such a sensitive and personal subject. J.D. Vance, at this point, began to show signs of frustration. His tone sharpened, and his answers became longer and less focused. Meanwhile, Leavitt remained calm. This contrast made a powerful visual statement. She was in control of herself and the room. The camera even caught audience members glancing toward her as if waiting for her next move. On the subject of big tech and free speech, Leavitt delivered one of the sharpest critiques of the evening. She argued for greater protections for users, transparency in algorithm manipulation, and a crackdown on censorship. Her stance resonated strongly with younger voters and free speech advocates, many of whom see tech overreach as one of the defining battles of our time. Leavitt didn't just criticize problems, she offered vision. Her responses often ended with solutions or at least steps toward improvement. This stood in contrast to Vance, who seemed more focused on defending his past votes. Voters don't just want blame, they want hope. And in this debate, Karoline Leavitt gave them a glimpse of something more than partisan fighting. When asked about foreign policy, Leavitt emphasized the need for strength without recklessness. She criticized endless wars while supporting strategic defense alliances. Her position was nuanced, showing she understands the global stakes. Vance, who's often vocal on foreign affairs, found himself having to agree with much of what she said, another indication of her dominance in the discussion. The energy in the room never faded, and Leavitt seemed to feed off it. She used her closing moments to rally people around shared values, truth, courage, and accountability. Her message wasn't just about policy, it was about restoring faith and leadership. That kind of rhetoric hits deeper than statistics. It inspires action, especially among politically disengaged viewers. In the aftermath of the debate, campaign donations to Leavitt reportedly spiked. Her team's phones were flooded with messages of support, and several conservative influencers endorsed her publicly. The media couldn't ignore it either. Headlines began to read, "Leavitt's moment," and "Rising Star takes the stage." What started as a debate ended as a career-defining victory. Karoline Leavitt's ability to maintain control over the narrative wasn't just a debating skill, it was strategic leadership in action. Each time the moderator shifted topics, she smoothly transitioned without losing focus or momentum. That fluidity kept her message consistent across multiple issues. In politics, consistency is rare and powerful. Viewers noticed, and her clarity helped solidify her credibility on a national stage. When Leavitt discussed national security, she was clear about the threats facing the U.S. but didn't rely on fear tactics. Instead, she stressed preparation, strong borders, and defense investments that protect American sovereignty without creating unnecessary conflict. Her calm yet firm tone reassured voters who were weary of panic politics. It was a moment where substance triumphed over theatrics. The debate included a short segment on mental health, where Leavitt offered fresh perspectives. She called for community-based support, school resources, and reduced stigma through education. Her emphasis on mental wellness made her stand out as someone willing to address real-world problems beyond typical political points. This made her relatable to young people, parents, and veterans, groups that often feel unheard. Another high point came when Leavitt challenged corporate lobbying influence in Washington. She spoke firmly about how special interests have corrupted political decision-making and pledged to support reforms that limit their power. Her words drew one of the loudest applauses of the night. People are hungry for candidates who can't be bought, and Leavitt positioned herself as that kind of leader. As the discussion turned toward leadership style, Vance portrayed himself as an insider who knows how the system works. Leavitt flipped that narrative, saying, "Maybe that's the problem. We need people who aren't part of the machine." It was a bold line that captured the core of her campaign: disrupt the status quo and return power to the people. Throughout the night, Leavitt avoided personal attacks, focusing instead on holding her opponent accountable for public statements and votes. That distinction gave her an air of professionalism and maturity, despite being younger than most on stage. Her approach reminded viewers that civility and strength are not opposites, and that women in politics don't need to imitate anyone to lead effectively. Even in moments where she could have gone for a harsh takedown, Leavitt chose poise. During a heated exchange about the economy, she didn't raise her voice or interrupt. She let J.D. Vance finish, then calmly dismantled his argument with facts and logic. That kind of self-control is rare, and viewers took note. Her strategy was power through restraint. Post-debate polls released just hours after the event showed a sharp rise in Karoline Leavitt's favorability. Among independent voters, she saw double-digit gains. Conservative women in particular voiced their support, many saying she made them feel heard and represented. These results weren't just numbers, they were signs that Leavitt's message and presence were resonating far beyond the debate stage. J.D. Vance, while seasoned and articulate, ultimately looked reactive. Leavitt drove the night's narrative. In politics, perception often matters as much as policy, and the perception after this event was clear. Karoline Leavitt brought energy, ideas, and integrity. That trifecta left a strong impression. If this debate was a preview of future races, she's a name we'll hear for years. Social media engagement exploded as the debate wrapped. Clips of Leavitt's best moments went viral on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Influencers reposted her quotes, and even mainstream outlets began covering her performance. It became more than a debate, it became a media moment. And in today's world, that kind of attention can turn a candidate into a movement. After the event, Leavitt appeared on several post-debate interviews where she maintained the same calm, confident energy. She answered tough questions without hesitation and reaffirmed her values without wavering. These follow-up appearances helped cement the strong impression she made during the debate itself. Momentum matters in modern politics, and Karoline Leavitt clearly understood how to carry it forward in real time. Supporters online praised Leavitt for being unbought, honest, and brave. Even critics admitted she had outperformed expectations. That type of broad acknowledgement is rare in polarized political media. It meant her message crossed some ideological lines and reached people who may not have agreed with everything she said, but still respected how she said it. Respect earns trust, and trust wins votes. As analysts reviewed the debate, many compared Leavitt's performance to early breakout moments from other rising stars in political history. The comparisons weren't just flattering, they were data-driven. Viewer engagement, search trends, and fundraising surges all pointed to a candidate gaining real traction. She didn't just debate well, she introduced herself to America on her own terms, and it worked. Campaign strategists watching from the sidelines started taking notes. Leavitt's mix of policy clarity, emotional intelligence, and media discipline was textbook effective. She handled controversy, explained policy, and never looked flustered. That combination is hard to coach, and even harder to execute live. Her communication style made her look less like a candidate and more like a leader already in office. Leavitt's age, once considered a political liability, became an asset by the end of the night. Her performance proved that leadership isn't about decades, it's about vision and courage. Young voters, in particular, found her relatable. She spoke to their frustrations but also gave them hope. This generation wants bold leadership, and Karoline Leavitt positioned herself as a serious answer to that call. One analyst said, Karoline didn't just challenge J.D. Vance, she challenged the entire GOP to rethink what strong leadership looks like. That quote captured the essence of her impact. She didn't just play the political game better, she changed the rules. Her rise represents a broader shift within conservative circles toward authenticity, transparency, and a deeper moral foundation in public service. J.D. Vance will certainly continue to be a player in national politics, but this debate was a turning point. He was tested, and although he didn't collapse, he didn't win. Leavitt's clarity and consistency exposed weaknesses in his platform that had gone unchallenged before. He'll need to regroup, while she continues to search. Momentum is everything, and she has it. As the clips from the debate circulated, many educators, military families, and business owners publicly voiced appreciation for Leavitt's clarity. Her ability to touch real people while talking about policy is what separates good politicians from great ones. She didn't just speak in sound bites, she communicated in values. That's how you build a long-lasting movement in modern political culture. From national headlines to grassroots conversations, Karoline Leavitt's debate performance became a cultural moment. She broke through not because of theatrics, but because of truth. She reminded people what it looks like when a leader puts principle before politics. Whether or not you agree with her, it's hard to deny that her presence changed the dynamic. She set a new standard. In conclusion, this debate wasn't just about Leavitt versus Vance. It was about the future of American conservatism. Karoline Leavitt didn't just win the debate. She inspired a wave of optimism in a political landscape that often feels cynical. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, like, and join us as we continue to follow her journey. This is only the beginning.